Hello and welcome to Linux Lab 4. My name's Kevin Large and I'll be your instructor for this session. So what are we going to do in Linux Lab 4? We're going to look at using the command line interface to create and delete folders, to create and delete files, and we'll also be looking at the way that you change the ownership of files and folders on a Linux system. Okay, so here we have our Linux system as it was at the end of Linux Lab 3. We've got the user that was created during the installation of the system, and the 4 additional users, Emma, Bob, Fred and Linda, that were created in Linux Lab 3. I'm going to log in as the user Emma, tap in Emma's password, which is QWERTY, wait for the graphical user interface to load, bring up a shell, Alt F2 and GNOME Terminal, which will be the application we'll use for the shell. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring the terminal window across to one side of the desktop. You'll see why I'm doing this in a moment. And I will open up the Files and Folder navigator. Just want to have it so as you can see the command line interface, and you can also see exactly where we are in the file system on the graphical user interface. Okay. Now, from the command line you can see I'm logged in as the user Emma on a system called Debian. I'm a normal user because I've got the $sign. So, back to basics. Who am I? You are Emma. Where am I? PWD, print working directory. You are in home Emma, Emma's home folder. I'm in precisely the same place in the command line interface as in the graphical user interface at the moment. I can prove this if I type ls, which is list files. List files and folders. Folders generally show up in blue text to indicate they're folders. We've got desktop, downloads, pictures, templates, etc. We've got the same 8 folders that you can see in the graphical user interface. Okay, that's good. Now, as the user Emma, because Emma owns her home directory, and in fact not only does Emma own her home directory, but the Emma group, anybody in the Emma group can also have access to that home directory, I should be able to create files and folders inside the graphical user interface from the command line. I just want to show you something quickly first. I'm going to do a ls, but I'm going to follow it with a -l, which will give me a long listing, a little bit more detail. Okay, and we can see the 8 folders on the system. We can see when they were created. We can see the permissions on those folders. We can see a D right at the very start there, indicating that they're directories and not files. We've got the owner of the folder. In this case, the owner is Emma. We've got the group ownership of the folder. Anybody in the Emma group, which was created when we created the user Emma, also has access to the folder. But what permissions do they have? Well, the owner, Emma, has read, write and execute permission, RWX. Anybody in the group Emma has read and execute permission. In other words, they can read the contents of the folder. Execute means that they can actually go into the folder. Double clicking on it will allow you to go into the folder. But they can't write anything in the folder. And anybody else on the system, in other words, anybody who's not Emma or in the group Emma, only has read and execute permission as well. So they can't write to the folder either. Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to create some folders and some files. I'm just going to clear the screen with a Control L. And what we'll do first is we'll make a folder, or a directory as they're generally termed in Linux. The command to do that is mkdir for make directory, and we'll make a directory called orange. Okay, and hitting enter, we should see that pop up on the screen on the right hand side in the graphical user interface, and there it is. There's the directory orange that we just created. Nothing in it, mind you, but we've just created a directory there. Okay. Now, should we wish to create more than one directory at once, we can do that very easily, but you do have to be careful to do it correctly. mkdir, if we now, for instance, decide that we're going to make, let's say we're going to make 10 directories, each called Apple 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So let's see, Apple, and we'll say 1 dot dot to 10. Now that may actually look correct, but it's not. There's a problem with that command. Linux will actually treat Apple as one item that we're trying to make, so one folder, effectively one directory, and it will also look inside this bracket. This is known as bracket expansion, and it will go, right, you're going from 1 up to 10. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And what it will actually do is it will create one folder called Apple, and then 10 more folders named 1 to 10. I'll just prove that for a minute. Okay. So there you go. That's not quite what we wanted to happen. We've now got a folder called Apple, which was the first part, and we've got these folders 1 to 10, which was created in the second part there. This is not what we're after doing, really. We're after creating Apple 1, Apple 2, Apple 3, Apple 4, etc. So what we've got to do now is do it properly. But to do that, we need to remove the folders. So let's show you quick ways of removing folders or directories. rmdir. rmdir will remove a directory, but the proviso is the directory has to be empty. Now these directories, we've just created them, there's nothing in them, they are empty, so that's fine. That will take the Apple folder out and it's gone. If we wish to remove the other directories, we could remove them one at a time, but of course that's a bit long-winded, so we can use the bracket expansion again. 1 to 10. Remove folders 1 to 10. And they go as well. Let's try to do this properly this time. Okay, we want to create folders. We want to create Apple 1 to Apple 10. And the way we do that is mkdir, there's a command, make directory, followed by a space. The space is very important. Apple. Now we need to use a backslash. The backslash says the space that follows is actually a space. It's not separating two items, it's an actual space in the name. Okay, so backslash, we effectively exit the space, or escape the space, I suppose you could say. And then we go curly bracket 1 dot dot 10 end curly bracket. Now this will do precisely what we're expecting. We'll create Apple space 1, Apple space 2, etc. all the way up to Apple space 10. And there you go. Precisely what we were after. Now all of these directories are empty, of course. There is absolutely nothing in them. If I wish to remove those directories, very straightforward. If you think about it, do the opposite, it's bound to work. Okay, and there they go. But I don't want to remove them at the minute, I'll leave them in there. So I'm just going to recreate those directories. So much quicker than right-click, new folder, type the name in, enter, right-click, new folder, type the name in, enter. Okay, so you imagine if you had to make 100. Oh, I've got to do it. I've got to do it. Let's make 100. Right, we'll remove them. I want you to make 100 folders. Right-click, new folder. No, you don't want to do that. So Apple 1 to Apple 100. Ooh, hello. What happened there? Ah. I'm trying to remove directories called Apple 1 to Apple 100. And they're not even there. So let's try make directory instead. There we go. Look at that. Now how long would that take on a GUI? Okay. Tell you what, there's a quicker way of doing this. Watch this. rmdir AP, because there's nothing else that begins with a lowercase a and a lowercase p, star. So that will remove any directory, the first two letters of which are a lowercase a and a lowercase p. That will effectively do the same thing. So there we go, we're back to business again. Right, so there's making directories and removing directories. Now what happens if we wanted to make a directory called Apple? Inside that directory there was a directory called Orange, and inside that there was another one called Pear, and inside that there was another one called Peach. Could that be done? Well, you know, right click, new folder, go into the directory. No, we don't want to do that. What we can do instead is we can do this. Let's clear the screen. mkdir -p. Let's see, what are we going to say? We're going to say Apple. And inside Apple we want a folder called Orange. And inside Orange we'll have a folder called Pear. And inside Pear we'll have a folder called Peach. And I think that's plenty far enough. Okay, that will actually make an entire path. So we'll have Apple, inside which is Orange, and so on. Here we go. Enter. And you can see the Apple folder's appeared. But inside Apple we have Orange. And inside Orange we have Pear. And inside Pear we have Peach. Quite crafty, isn't it? Okay, let's skip back. Now, watch what happens if I try to remove that directory with the rmdir command. If you remember what I was saying, that will only remove empty directories. That directory is no longer empty. This is so you don't inadvertently take a directory out that's full of useful things. Okay, so there's a little bit of a safety margin built in there. We can remove it, however, if we use rm for remove, -r, which means recursively, in other words, remove the folder and everything that's inside it. Apple. Okay. That takes the folder out, and it has no problem taking out the folder and everything inside the folder. Okay, so there's making folders, and what we want to do now, let's make some files. Let's make some files inside the Orange directory. So, if I do an ls -l, we could see that we have the Orange directory. The owner of the Orange directory is Emma. Anybody in the group Emma has permissions as well. Emma herself has the first set of permissions, read, write and execute. Anybody in the group Emma has the second set of permissions, just read and execute, so they can't write to the folder. And anybody else on the system has the third set of permissions, that's just read and execute. Okay, and we can see it's a directory because it has a D in front of it, and it's also blue. Right. So what do we want to do? Let's change into that directory. cd orange. Boom. We want to check to see where we are. pwd will always tell you where you are. You're in a directory called home, inside a directory called Emma, inside a directory called Orange. Excellent. Okay, so we're effectively there inside the Orange directory. If you want to make files, there are numerous ways to make files. You could use a text editor to make the file, but in this case we just want to make empty files. There's a very quick way of making empty files, and it's to use the command touch, and touch will create empty files. So let's say we want to create some files called I don't know, sales space, don't forget to exit the space, 1 2 10. There we go. Bang. Hey. Okay, and these are empty. There's nothing in these files. You can see nothing in there. Okay. In fact, we can tell there's nothing in there. ls-l. Look, file size 0. Nothing in there. Okay. Time created, date created, name of the file, permissions on the file. Emma has read and write permission. Anybody in the group Emma has only read permission, no write and no execute. And anybody else on the system also only has read permission, no write and execute. That's looking good. Okay, so what shall we do now? Let's have a little look. So we'll delete those files. There's absolutely nothing else in the folder, so I should be able to just type in rm asterisk. Be very careful doing these things. That should take them all out. Okay, now let's try doing something a little bit more specific now. I'm logged in as the user Emma at the moment, and I just want to show you how permissions come in here. I'm going to type cd ... cd ... will move me back one in the file system. If I look where I am, pwd, I'm in home Emma Orange. So cd ... will move me back one step to home Emma. And if I do cd ... again, I'll go back another step, and you'll see I'm in home. In fact, it's reflected there as well, just to let you know where you are. But pwd, you're in home. Now, let's make a folder in home. See what happens. Let's make a folder called sales. Problem. Permission denied. Okay, so we're in home. Let's go to home in the graphical user interface, and I've just tried to make a folder called sales. Okay, it won't let me. ls-l. Actually, I'm not looking at home there, am I? I'm still in Emma's home directory. Let's go into my computer, home. That's better. Bob, Emma, Fred, Kevin, Linda. Bob, Emma, Fred, Kevin, Linda. We're in the same place now. We're in the home directory. Okay. And when I tried to make that folder, it just said permission denied. Why would that be? Well, let's have a look at the permissions on the /home folder. I need to start with a / because home is right at the root of the operating system. The / in Linux is a bit like the C in Windows. You know, everything's underneath the C drive, C : program files and things like that. Okay, the / is effectively the root of the file system. So if we look at home, you'll notice, actually, I don't want to look at home, do I? I want to look at / itself. And you can see that the home folder, where we are, has an owner of root, a group ownership of root. The owner, root, can read, write and execute, but the group root can only read and execute, and anybody else on the system, including Emma, can only read and execute. Read means I can go into the folder and see what's in the folder, which of course I can. I'm there in the graphical user interface. And execute means you can actually double click on the folder and go into it. But I can't do anything else. Look, I try to make a folder, right click, it's all greyed out. New folder, it just won't play. Okay. This is because I don't have permission. Emma has no permission on the home folder to write. Her write permission has been removed. In fact, it's that one there. Anybody else on the system has only got read and execute permission, no write permission. So how do I get around this? How can I make a folder called sales in the home directory? Easy. Just become root. SU, type the root user's password. Check to make sure you're still in the home folder. Yes, I am. Now let's try making that directory. mkdir sales. Helps when you spell it correctly. mkdir sales. And no problem at all. Sales folder pops up on the system. Okay, while we're here, we'll use the up arrow and we'll make a directory called research. Okay, so we've got two directories, one called sales, one called research. Now, as the user Emma, let's have a little look. Let's say that Emma should have permission to create things in the sales directory. Let's see if she can. Right click. Oh, that's not good, is it? Right click. Can't create a folder. It's totally greyed out. I don't have permission to the sales directory as the user Emma, which is in the graphical interface on the right hand side. Because I graphically logged in as Emma, so my graphical user interface is running under the permission that Emma has, and I can't create folders. Why? Well, let's have a look. ls-l. Let's have a look at the permissions on the folders in this directory. That answers that then. Root. Okay. Okay then, so root is the owner and has read, write and execute, and anybody in the group root has simply read and write permission. This is tricky. I would like anybody in the sales group to have permission to create folders. How can I go about doing that? I wonder who's in the sales group at the moment. Let's have a look. Tail Etsy group. Ah, Bob and Emma are in the sales group. Yes, because we put Bob and Emma in the sales group in the last video. Good. Okay, so for Bob and Emma to be able to create folders in here, let's just try something. Okay. Here we go then. ls minus l. I would like to put sales folder into the sales group. I think I'll leave the owner as root for the moment, but I'd like to have anybody who's in the sales group have access, read and write access. So I've got two jobs to do. My first job is I need to change the group ownership of the sales folder to sales, and while I'm at it I'll change the group ownership of the research folder to research. Okay, how do we do that? chown change owner. Simple as that. We'll leave root as the actual owner, but the group owner will be the sales group for the directory sales. Now we can do this to sales because we're actually in the home folder and the directory sales is in the home folder, so we're good to go. Right, that's cool. And while we're there, we'll set research up. So the owner will remain root, but I want to set the group not to be root but to be research. Okay, on the research folder. Looking good. Okay, how can we check to see if that's worked? ls minus l. Oh, look at the difference there. Okay, so research was owned by root, and anybody in the group root had read and execute permission. The owner root had read, write and execute permission. Well, the ownership's not changed. Root still owns the folder and still has read, write and execute permission, but now anybody in the group research, which includes Emma, has read and execute permission. Okay, that is not going to change things, believe it or not. Let's have a look. Where are we? Sales we want, don't we? Which is this one here. Sales, read and execute permission. See, still greyed out. Why? Because although Emma is in the group sales, currently the sales group only have read and execute permission, so we still can't write in there. Okay, so at least we've done one thing. We've changed the group ownership of the sales directory to the group sales, and we've changed the group ownership of the research directory to the group research. But what we now need to do is we need to change the permissions. Alright, so what we'll do is we will say chmod change mode. In Linux, permissions are known as modes. So chmod, change permission. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky. This is where anybody's done a bit of networking. There's two ways of doing this, but I like doing it the binary way. Most people think it's the harder way, but it's just nice once you know how to do it. Anybody who's done a bit of networking will know about binary. If you break something down into binary, the first three place positions are the ones column, the twos column, and the fours column. Yeah, so the first bit represents a value of 1, the second bit represents a value of 2, and the third bit represents a value of 4. So combined together, if you switch all three bits on, the first bit, the second bit, and the third bit, you're switching on 1, 2, and 4, which means 7. Because 1, 2, and 4 equals 7. Oh, yes, it is complicated when you first look at it, but it's not too bad really afterwards. In this case, we only have the 4-bit switched on and the 1-bit switched on. The 2-bit is switched off. So 1 and 4 is 5. So currently we're running with 755 permission. That's read, write, execute, read, execute, read, execute. But what we want to do, is we want to have read write execute, read write execute, read execute, which would be 775. Okay, on sales. Doesn't look like much has happened, but you have to be very careful here because a lot has actually happened. If you compare this line for the sales folder before we changed the permissions to this line for the sales folder after we've changed the permissions, the only change now is that the sales group, instead of having read and execute permission, they now have read, write and execute permission. Okay, which means, let's have a little look. So where are we? We're in sales, that's it. Oh look, not greyed out anymore because it works. How crazy is that? Let's just delete that for a moment. Right, I'm just going to prove it to you now. I'm going to prove to you that what I just said is all true. I'm going to use the up arrow and I'm going to change that permission back from 775 to 755. Right. And what that will do is that will go back to read write execute for the owner root, but only read and execute for sales. Now, there we go. It's gone again. You have no permission to write to that folder. Right. Okay, let's fix that again. Okay. And now I have permission again. Right, okay. Right, that's looking good. What do we need to do now? Let's see, we've changed the permissions so that the sales group has read, write and execute permission on the sales folder. We really ought to do the same thing for the research group. Well, that's easy now, isn't it? 775 on the research. That's cool. This now means that Emma, because she's in the sales group, can create folders in here. In fact, let's have a little look. If we go back one, we exit from being root, back to Emma. And where are we at the moment? ls-l. Let's have a look. We're in the home folder, aren't we? pwd. Yep, home. We really want to be in the sales folder. So I'm going to cd, change directory to sales. Oops. Sales. That's it. And let's just make some folders there. So in sales we'll have 10 folders. So sales 1 to 10, and there they are. Haha, I've done it again, haven't I? I forgot to exit the space there. And there's me using Linux for years and I still forgot to exit the space. RM, let's just get rid of everything. Right. Hold on. Use RM minus R then. Bang. There they go. I could have used RMDIR there, but RM won't remove a directory unless you do the minus R on it. RMDIR will remove a directory as long as it's not empty. Okay, let's try this properly this time. And use the backslash to escape the space. Yay! Superb. Absolutely superb. Okay. Now, let's have a little think about this for a minute. So, ls-l. Currently, all those folders have an owner of Emma and a group of Emma. That's not what we wanted to happen, is it? No, it's not. Because we wanted the group ownership on all those folders to be sales. So how can we change the group ownership on all the folders at the same time? ch own. There's numerous ways of doing this, but let's leave the user on the first 5 will set to Bob, and the group will be sales, and the user on the second 5 will set to Emma, and the group will be sales. How about that? So Bob, you are the user that owns the first 5 folders, and anybody in sales can have certain permissions to it. Okay, and we'll say sales, but we only want to do that on the first 5, so sales / to escape the space 1 to 5. There we go. So the first 5 will have Bob as the owner and sales as the group. Ooh, why didn't that work? Any guesses? Because I'm trying to make Bob the owner of a folder, and I can't make Bob the owner of a folder if I'm the user Emma, because Emma doesn't have permission to change ownership of folders to Bob. So let's become the root user, try that command again. Okay, I'll actually highlight the command and use the middle button on my mouse to paste it. No problem. See the power of the root user. Got to be very careful. And what we will do is we'll, on the remaining 5 folders, we'll make sure that the user Emma is the owner on those. On 5 to 10, sales 5 to 10, bang. Okay. Actually, it should have been sales 6 to 10, shouldn't it? Thinking about that, let's just bring up Bob 1 to 5 for Bob, and 6 to 10 for Emma. Okay, we'll do an ls-l, see what damage we've done, and you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The owner is Bob, the group is sales, and 6 to 10, the owner is Emma, and the group is sales. In fact, if you look at this, because Bob is the owner of 1 to 5, and Bob, being the owner, has read, write and execute, Bob can read, write and execute. In other words, can enter folders 1 to 5. But Emma can't, because Emma is not the owner. She is in the sales group, but notice the sales group only has read and execute permission. So that now means that Emma, she can read and she can execute, in other words go into those folders. So yeah, no problem. She can go into those folders, no trouble at all. But can she create anything in there? No. Grayed out. Any of those folders she cannot create things in. Okay. Tell you what we can do though. How about this? You're getting a real deep masterclass in permissions and ownerships here. Wouldn't it be nice if we could change the group ownership, the sales part, so as everybody had read, write and execute? All of those lines turn to RWX instead of RX. So we change them from a 5, that's the 1 bit being set and the 4 bit being set, over to the 4, the 2 and the 1 bit being set, which is a 7. So let's see, so we say ch own 7, that's read, write and execute, 7, read, write and execute, 5, just read and execute, on anything that begins with an S and an A. That'll do it, won't it? SA asterisk. Bang. Ooh. Ooh. Hello. Did that work? What have I done? Ah. That's interesting. Look. Got locks on all of them now. What have I done? Oh dear, oh dear. Yeah, this is how you break things, ladies and gentlemen. I changed ownership, not changed permission. Now the owner of the files is 777. Well, 777 doesn't even exist. That's why I've got padlocks on everything now. 777. Oh dear. Let's see if we can fix things. The owner of 1 to 5 should be Bob. This is where your up arrow comes in, so useful for remembering commands. And the owner of 6 to 10 should be Emma. There we go. Fixed. So now if I do an ls-l, that's fixed all of that 775 business. Now let's do it properly this time. chmod, not chown, chmod. Change permission, not change owner. 775 on anything that begins with an S and an A. Bang. There you go. Look at that. See all the padlocks disappear? It does take a bit of getting used to, playing around with permissions and ownerships in Linux. It's not exactly straightforward, I will give you that. But once you've done it a few times, it's not too bad. So we've now got read, write and execute for Bob, and read, write and execute for the sales. In fact, anybody in the sales group now has read, write and execute permission. So not only can the user Emma read, write and execute to any of these folders, but also the user Bob, who is also in the sales group, should be able to read, write and execute to the folders. Cool. Okay. Let's just check that. And then we'll call it a day, because otherwise this video will go on far too long. We'll look at permissions in a bit more depth in the next video. So Emma, and we'll log out as Emma. Okay, so log out, and let's see what it says. We'll log in as Bob. There's Bob. So QWERTY. Bob is also in the sales group. So Bob should have access to the sales folder. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Where is the sales folder? It is in home, because that's where we created it. There you go, sales folder. And look at that, no problem at all. Yep, so that all works. Right, delete that. Looking good. Okay, so I hope that has been informative to you. You probably will have to look at that if you haven't used Linux before, maybe 2 or 3 times to actually get your head fully around it, because I will say permissions and ownership on files and folders is not the most straightforward thing in the world, especially those binary numbers, but we'll talk about those a little bit more in the next video, and we'll also have a little look at installing programs on the system. Thanks very much for watching, and don't forget to tune in to the channel for upcoming videos.